Hello and a very warm welcome to Talking Germany, the show where we do just that. And today we have a very special edition of the show because we're going to be talking to the man at the top of Deutsche Welle, our Director General, Erik Bettermann. And here he is. Hello. Thank you very much for joining us today here on Talking Germany. It's a great pleasure. Now, Erik Bettermann has got a great job representing what is Germany's premier calling card in the global media landscape. But it's a tough job too, because it's a very competitive market. However, Erik Bettermann brings together decades of political experience and a passion for communication and networking. So it's going to be interesting to hear what he has to say about Germany and its main international broadcaster, both now and perhaps even more importantly in the future. So let's have a look at today's featured topics. Man with a message. Erik Bettermann describes himself as a people person, a diplomat and communicator who believes Deutsche Welle is one of Germany's biggest assets. From the heart of Europe, Deutsche Welle has established itself as a multimedia window on Germany and the rest of Europe. The question now is, where does the future lie? And Cologne, Carnival City. The people of Cologne are tolerant, easygoing and love to party. And they have a special Rhineland mentality. Erik Bettermann will tell us more. I can tell you're already looking forward to talking about the Rhineland mentality. But first of all, Erik Bettermann, I have described you as a communicator. So I'd like to begin by asking you to communicate, to tell us, to outline for us what Deutsche Welle is all about.
Deutsche Welle has, of course, experienced change. Founded in 1953, it was at first the voice of the new Germany, of post-war Germany. Theodor Heuss, who was West German president at the time, said, Deutsche Welle should help relax things and demonstrate democracy. And we were involved over all the years in the East-West conflict. The question then was, are you for Western culture and Western policies, or for Eastern and the Warsaw Pact policies? I believe today the changes that have occurred, especially German reunification, also have led to more involvement on the world stage. And a sort of world public has been developing over the past decade. When I became Director General some 10 years ago, there were only 3 global English-language TV broadcasters, BBC World, CNN, and Deutsche Welle. Today we have 26. So we need to make our contribution, not only for our viewers, but also for this developing global political and economic dialogue.
Okay. And, of course, everybody knows that Germany has a difficult history. There's no doubt about that. But in the last 2 decades or so, what we've seen here in Germany is we've seen the Berlin Wall coming down, we've seen tyranny being overcome, we've seen the great successful experiment of German reunification. What lessons has Germany learnt in that period that are transferable to other countries?
Also erstmal glaube ich, dass wir gerade aus dieser schrecklichen Geschichte der Nazi-Herrschaft.
First off, I believe that we learned a lot about the role, the mission and meaning of the media from the horrific history of Nazi rule during World War II, and then from East Germany's dictatorship. Basically, we have the British system, public broadcasting like the BBC. It was transferred here after World War II. And I believe that we have further developed it. And that is something that we can pass on to others. Independent broadcasting, independent from the state, not only at Deutsche Welle, but across the country. And that is something extremely valuable. It can't necessarily be copied in the same way by every country, but instead needs to be done by the global media. That's why there are 26 international broadcasters today, because many regimes have learned to accept these developments. And don't forget that 2/3 of the people on this planet live in non-liberalized media markets.
Okay, some first impressions there from Erik Bettermann. Let's find out a little bit more now.
Deutsche Welle is his domain. And Director General Erik Bettermann works to ensure that it fulfills its role as Germany's media calling card to the rest of the world. He took the helm here in October 2001 and has become known for his open, communicative leadership style. Erik Bettermann enjoys meeting people. His colleagues call him a master networker. His friends praise his people skills. A father of 3, he's a family man. Erik Bettermann was born in May 1944 near Leipzig in eastern Germany. He grew up in the West in the Rhineland. He studied philosophy and pedagogy in Cologne and Bonn, and then worked in public relations. In 1971, he moved to the Federal Youth Council, an association of youth organizations representing millions of young Germans.
The German Federal Youth Council represents the interests of young people to our government, parliament and the public.
And he represented their interests at the highest level as well. Here at a meeting with Helmut Schmidt, who was then Chancellor. He also organized exchanges for young people between East and West Germany, like here at the 1973 World Youth Festival in East Berlin. In the 1980s, Bettermann made the switch to politics himself. In Bonn, he became a department head in the Social Democrat Party Executive Committee and was appointed Deputy General Secretary of the SPD in 1989. 3 years later, he moved on to Germany's smallest state, Bremen, where he was first counselor to the Senator of Federal Affairs and then became Bremen's representative on the federal and European levels. As a native of the Rhineland, Erik Bettermann enjoys festivals and celebrations, like here at an annual charity banquet that merchants in Bremen have organized for 460 years. But he's truly in his element when it comes to the Rhineland Carnival, the famous pre-Lenten celebration. He's a reserve major in the honor guard of the city of Cologne, one of the traditional carnival associations in his native Rhineland. After Bremen, he returned back there as Director General of Deutsche Welle. Ever since, he's been working to help break down barriers and promote cooperation for Germany's international broadcaster. Today, he's our guest on Talking Germany, Erik Bettermann.
Erik Bettermann, I'd like to go back to your very early days. You were born in 1944 at the end of the Second World War. Germany was a country in ruins. But the story very quickly changed and it became the story of the economic miracle. Tell us what you can remember from those days.
I can remember it very well. I'm from the first post-war generation. I grew up in Cologne, and I know relations with our neighbors were not always easy. I had to learn in a Dutch youth hostel about the things perpetrated in Germany's name between 1933 and 1945. My history lessons ended at 1919. So I learned about concentration camps and the Holocaust on my own. As to the economic revival in the 1950s, yes, that was very strong. But this is something that really interested me. I said, I'm not guilty, I didn't kill anyone, but I have an historic responsibility to my country, and I continue to believe that today. And that's why I helped build a German-French youth partnership, a German-Polish institute, and something that especially interested me, a German-Israeli youth exchange program. So things have continuously improved, economically, and the region improved as well. Early on, I supported a unified Europe and removing borders.
Okay, and when you talk about things like guilt and you talk about responsibility for German history, do you have the sense that I have that Germany in the last 10 or 15 years or so is a country that is much more at ease with itself and the role it can play in the world?
I have to agree with you there. In my view, since German reunification, we've become very focused on ourselves. Navel-gazing, perhaps. Maybe a bit more oriented towards Europe, because given a population of 80 million, we really do travel a lot. But on the question of our international responsibilities, I don't think the debate is over yet. I notice that quite a bit when traveling through our broadcast areas, which means basically traveling around the world. And when I come back home, I feel that self-pity can be quite strong. We get so worked up about things and worry about jobs and whether we can finance it all and the taxes involved.
And that's all understandable, but it's not exactly the kind of international atmosphere that exists in Britain or France, for example, where everything is more steeped in culture and heritage. Maybe it has to do with the Commonwealth and its history, and the role of the Queen around the world. But Germany has a broken history because of 2 world wars through our own fault. So I don't think we've returned to that kind of international orientation yet, even if today we have Bundeswehr presence in Djibouti or Afghanistan.
Something that we will be talking about very shortly. Now, we've talked a little bit about the Deutsche Welle and what it stands for. What we're going to do next is to get Erik Bettermann to answer some of the questions that you sent in to us ahead of this special edition of Talking Germany. But before we talk above all, of course, about the future of Deutsche Welle, let's take stock.
Deutsche Welle, Germany's international broadcaster. On radio, on television and on the internet in 30 languages around the globe. And Deutsche Welle is also home to the DW Academy, the international institute that trains young journalists from developing countries in particular. Deutsche Welle was launched 58 years ago. Its first radio broadcast went to air in May 1953. And that marked the start of Germany's international broadcaster, publicly financed with the mission to report independently on topics about Germany, Europe and the world. The centerpieces of Deutsche Welle's mission are freedom of information, intercultural dialogue and international understanding, linking German points of view to global perspectives. In countries that lack free media, it provides full and uncensored information to promote democracy and civic development. Today, about 1,500 employees from over 60 countries work at Deutsche Welle's 2 locations, in Bonn and Berlin. Now the international broadcaster is poised to make some changes. Shortwave radio transmissions are being discontinued with the exception of those to Africa and parts of Asia. But online and mobile services are to be expanded, including audio on demand and podcasts, a shift in focus that reflects changes in global media consumption. And to reach a global audience, television programming is providing content tailored to regional needs in German, English, Spanish and Arabic.
A warm welcome to this special edition of the Journal on DW TV.
Bienvenidos al informativo de la televisión alemana.
أهلا بكم في هذه النشرة الأخبارية من قناة DW TV في برلين.
And Deutsche Welle Online is a multimedia platform that offers live streaming, online forums, blogs and news from all over the world in a variety of languages. And like the television programming, the online presence is continually expanding. Deutsche Welle, Germany's calling card to the rest of the world.
OK, as promised, Erik Bettermann is going to now field some questions for us. And the first one is a very general question. Al Jazeera, CNN, France 24, Russia Today, BBC World, you've mentioned some of these already. These are our rivals. Some of them are commercial, some of them are publicly funded. Give me an idea of where Deutsche Welle stands against those rivals.
Actually, together with broadcasters that share the same social values. We have our origins in a tradition based on all episodes of German history. But the tradition is Enlightenment. And that means we have a certain interpretation of the role of the individual and how a society should be democratically structured. That's why we've developed good cooperation with the broadcasters you just mentioned. I'm in regular contact with the BBC, with France 24, with American partners, and partners in the Netherlands. But rivals? I wouldn't really say rivals. Instead, I would prefer to say everyone is coming from their own background, and we're also trying this in different ways. For example, through our Journalist Training Academy. Some 3,000 journalists are trained there every year. And that's one way of transporting social values.
OK, point well taken. Now let's get on to some specifics. We've got Manfred Slobodny from Taiwan, who says, for me, Deutsche Welle's programme is an important bridge to German and European current affairs, culture, business and politics. What he misses, though, are German TV series and films, and other viewers, I know, say, why can't we have more German soccer matches? Why can't we have the Eurovision Song Contest?
First of all, what's different from the BBC, and allow me to compare us with them, is that I don't have a strong parent organization like the BBC World has with BBC Domestic. In Germany, public broadcasting is a federal system. The first and second channels are not under any direct political scrutiny. Under agreements with them, we take large segments of their programming, but this could be expanded. I don't have broadcast rights for TV series or movies. I understand that a good broadcaster needs a bit of entertainment, but unfortunately we don't have that. Right now we're working to overcome the divide we have in Germany between the individual states and federal government. I'm optimistic, and perhaps in 3 or 4 years' time, we'll be able to offer viewers in Taiwan a few series from Germany.
A good thing it would be too. Okay. You know, as well as I know, that a lot of our viewers out there on the radio side are very concerned about cutbacks in shortwave broadcasts, radio broadcasts around the world. Here's a voice from South Africa. Torsten Wagner is his name. He says, in my opinion, shortwave still has a role to play in 2011. After all, not everybody has internet. Let me give you one other viewer. Wanda Souza Costa Pereira in Brazil says there are still countries and lots of people who are dependent on the radio.
We're not alone. Our partners like the BBC, the French, or the Americans, we've all realized that shortwave band broadcasting, with those interferences, is rapidly declining. It varies depending on the world region. That's why we're discontinuing shortwave broadcasting to Europe and Asia, but not to Africa. When it comes to Latin America and Brazil, I regret that we do not have any radio programming. But I've come to the conclusion that what we're really doing is not discontinuing radio broadcasting, but redistributing it. We have 4,500 partner stations in the world which receive our programming and then rebroadcast it on FM. We have our own FM stations in Indonesia, for instance. When it comes to Latin America, where we do have TV and the Internet, an Internet presence with podcasts and videos, I can imagine offering many FM stations there half an hour of German and half an hour of Spanish programming. It's all a question of costs.
Okay, one more question. We'll take a question from Greg Daruda, somewhere in Asia, because listen to what he has to say. We want to see 50% English like we used to. Here in Asia, we're getting half of our now reduced English feed in the nighttime hours when we are sleeping. He has a problem.
Yes. Specifically in Asia, we've made significant changes in our television programming. Today we have 2 TV channels. One mostly in German, and the other at night in English. I would recommend to viewers to perhaps watch the second channel, which is mostly in English, and has some German programming at night. Based on our experiences in Asia over the last year, we want to introduce this system in Africa and Latin America, and there we would alternate with Spanish programming.
Okay. Erik Bettermann, that's very interesting stuff. Thank you for clarifying a lot of those issues. Plenty of food for thought there, that's for sure. Thanks to you, our viewers, for writing in. And if your question hasn't been answered, then please do not despair. We're going to be sending a written response to everybody who got in touch with an inquiry, of course. Now, one major event that Deutsche Welle gives its backing to is the annual Global Media Forum. This time round, the focus is on human rights and globalisation challenges for the media. The venue is, as ever this year, the former German capital, Bonn, and it all gets underway on the 20th of June.
All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. No one may be held in slavery or servitude. Everyone has the right to education. These are just some of the articles of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But human rights are being violated across the world every day. At Deutsche Welle's Global Media Forum, journalists and representatives from politics, culture, business, and science will discuss how media can help promote human rights. More than 1,300 participants from around 100 nations will attend the forum in Bonn. A chance to learn, to share, and to work toward a common goal.
Erik Bettermann, the whole thing about how the news media approach international issues and the responsibility that the media have, I'd like to go right to the crux of it and talk about something that I would call news sustainability. And I want to ask you, Deutsche Welle, is it an organisation that when there is a major event, like in Egypt, with the revolution that has taken place there, does Deutsche Welle go in and just stay there for the major historic headline-grabbing events, or does it stay on afterwards for the process that follows after that?
Absolutely. For instance, we're staying in Egypt. I believe we can provide information that can help those who are bringing about change. And in Tunisia, where our Arabic programming is now taken in its entirety by a new, growing broadcaster, Hannibal TV. There's a real desire to learn from our experiences. For example, how Germany dealt with the secret police, the communist secret police, Stasi, in East Germany. And this is still an ongoing process. So there's an exchange of experience. And that's why now, more than ever, we're a center of attention in the Arab world. It's also why we're trying to provide help via social media, mobile media technology, and a YouTube channel. We didn't initiate such developments, but we can provide assistance now based on experience.
Okay, some very, very interesting points there. Now, as we just saw, the Global Media Forum that we've just been talking about takes place in Bonn, which, as many of our viewers know, is located on the River Rhine. And Rhinelanders, people from the Rhineland, people like Erik Bettermann, have a very specific mentality. We've mentioned that already. Before we talk to the Rhinelander himself, let's find out more by going downriver from Bonn to Cologne.
The Rhine, Germany's greatest river. A major waterway, and for those who live in the Rhineland, the heart and soul of their way of life. And that way of life is especially high-spirited here in Cologne. Anyone who wants to truly understand Cologne has to take its 3 trademarks into account: Cologne Cathedral, the Carnival, and Kölsch beer. First, the cathedral. Building it took over 600 years, so perhaps that's why locals are known for their relaxed pace. They know all good things take time. That's also the first article of the famous but unwritten Cologne Constitution. It is what it is. And in Cologne, what it is a party. Celebrations are also basic to the Rhineland way of life, and a sense of humour is a civic duty. The highlight is the Carnival, which Cologne residents celebrate in style. And that's another article in Cologne's unwritten constitution. You'll laugh yourself silly, a motto for young and old alike. Cologne is also famous for its easygoing manner, except when it comes to beer, where the locals crave perfection. So they brew their own, Kölsch. It's the mainstay of the city's watering holes, and it's customary for the server to keep bringing more Kölsch until the drinker puts a coaster on top of the glass. Hospitality is also a local trademark. Let's have a drink is another article in the city's laid-back constitution. It's all part of the attitude toward life in the city on the Rhine.
OK, Erik Bettermann, the people of Cologne are open-minded.
Very tolerant.
Friendly, cosmopolitan, yeah? They drink a lot of beer.
I prefer wine.
Ah, interesting one, yeah. And they don't have a very good football team.
Cologne is in the first division, and we weren't relegated. Plus, I'm a member of the club.
Oh, really? OK, very good. Right. Right, I'm going to give you a minute now. This is what we're really talking about here. This Rhineland mentality, describe it. You've got 1 minute.
I think it's very clear. It's a region in Germany that for more than 2,000 years has gone through cultural changes and upheavals, including occupation, invasions. From the Romans, the French, to the Prussians, who at some point annexed us. And, of course, the role of the Archbishop, who was also the Chancellor of the Holy Roman Empire up until the 18th century. So it's a mixed culture. And Carnival is one aspect of it. That also exists in other parts of the world. In Rio de Janeiro, or Venice, or Basel, and elsewhere. Mainz, of course. But I definitely believe it influenced my life, making me more tolerant of others with differing opinions, and getting everyone involved. Integration, so to speak. You're never alone in a Cologne pub. There's always someone to invite. That's a generalization, but I think it's something special about the Cologne populace. They're open to the world and enjoy integrating people.
OK, everybody out there who hasn't been to the carnival, time to go now. Right, Mr. Bettermann, we're going to finish with our quick quiz, our traditional Talking Germany quick quiz. Berlin or Cologne?
Both. And Italy.
OK. Oh, God, difficult question. What's more effective, soft power or hard power?
Soft power.
Good. That's the most important one. Deutsche Welle, a force to reckon with?
Yeah.
Yes.
OK. That's all we've got time for. I'm sorry. I've got loads of other interesting questions. It's been a great show with Erik Bettermann, Deutsche Welle's Director General. If you've enjoyed his company as much as I have, come back next week. Until then, cheers.